Welcome everyone to the Two-Sided Truth Debate Podcast, where we debate it, defend it, and then you decide. A podcast where the facts are presented and you decide the winner. I am your host and moderator, Lisa Tracy. Our sponsors of this evening's event is The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy and Shy High Apparel. I'm so excited that you decided to join us this evening. Tonight, we have two debaters with opposing views, Sean Watson and Michael Crenshaw, debating on the topic, should all drugs be legalized? So here are the rules of engagement. Our debaters have 4 subtopics/rounds to debate, with an additional sparring round where our debaters will get a chance to ask each other questions and respond. With the exception of the sparring round, each round is 8 minutes long, which includes debaters laying out their arguments and presenting their facts. And then they will both have a chance to respond before moving on to the next round. You, as the viewer, will vote. You will have a chance to vote on each round. We also encourage you to make comments in the chat, but we ask that you are respectful with your comments. Our debaters have worked hard to present their topics and to debate. This message is to our debaters and our viewers. It's okay to be emotional and passionate, but we want you to be respectful. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. However, you can only cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com. So at the end of this debate, we will have a winner because you would have voted. So with that being said, let's begin. All right, so let's welcome our debaters. Now, before I welcome our debaters, I do want to say that my show producer is off. Well, she's not off, but she is traveling. So she's kind of behind the scenes, and I really appreciate her trying to juggle a lot of things for me this evening. So I'll be kind of where she's kind of have some gaps, I'll be kind of filling in for her as well. So I ask for your patience because I am juggling 2 studios. So before we get started, I want to welcome our debaters, Sean Watson. Please introduce yourself, what's your position in the debate, and just tell the viewers a little bit about, yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Sean Watson from the In the Zone podcast, and I'm here to debate, or be on the pro side of legalizing all drugs here in the U.S.
Awesome. And then we also have Michael Crenshaw. Michael Crenshaw, you've been here with us before. Please introduce yourself and tell our audience what side you're on the debate.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Crenshaw, and like Lisa said, I've been here before. So thank you, Lisa, for bringing me back. And I am on the side of drugs should not be legalized across the U.S.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So I want to remind our viewing audience, remember, your job is to go to the twosidedtruth.com to vote. You are only allowed to vote once without being subscribed or signed in. However, subscriptions are free. What did I say? Subscriptions are free, free 99. So subscribe to the Two-Sided Truth to vote more than once. So to give a little bit of historical relevance before we debate whether all drugs should be legalized or not, we just need to give a little bit of history. So with that being said, let me go ahead and do just that. In 1920, the United States banned alcohol under the 18th Amendment. At the time, it was seen as a threat to society tied to crime, broken families, and moral decline. But banning it didn't stop people from drinking. It pushed alcohol underground. Bootlegging took over, illegal markets expanded, organized crime, including figures like Al Capone, rose in power. So by 1933, the government reversed course with the 21st Amendment, not because alcohol became safe, but because prohibition created consequences they could not control. Now, fast forward, alcohol is legal, regulated, and socially accepted, despite its risk. Tobacco, too. And even more powerful, substances exist in another category, pharmaceutical drugs. Prescription opioids, for example, are legally, medically approved, and widely distributed. Yet they have played a major role in addiction and overdose deaths across the country. At the same time, marijuana, once criminalized nationwide, is now legal in many states. Cannabis dispensaries operate openly, selling what was once considered an illegal drug. Meanwhile, other substances remain illegal under laws shaped by the War on Drugs, launched in 1970, a system that has led to decades of enforcement, mass incarceration, and underground drug markets that still thrive today. So we've seen this platform before ban a substance, watch it go underground, then eventually regulate it. So tonight's question sits right in the middle of that history. Are today's drug laws truly protecting society, or are we repeating a cycle we've already seen before? And with that said, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the first round. And I already told you all, I am uh I am manning two studios this evening. So with that said, we're going to go ahead with our first round. Our first round is the fire starter. All right, round 1, and we are going to move forward with that. So with that said, the first person that is up for tonight is Sean.
Why we got the newbie going first?
For some reason, the person on my left always goes first. The person that was the first on the left on the flyer in my mind goes first.
Fine. It's fine.
I know you can handle it.
Yeah, you got it, Sean. You good. You got it.
All right. So tonight's subtopic number 1 is bodily freedom or government protection. Should adults have the right to legally use any drug they choose? 2 minutes. And I'm going to start. Let me start because listen, I'm running two things tonight. So let me start your clock. Go ahead.
All right. The first thing I want to get clarified is that legalization does not mean you can do whatever you want, any kind of way, at any kind of limits, right? We have regulation. We have regulation across all drugs and substances that we use, not just legal drugs that you guys use, Percocets and the like, but we have them across relaxers. Women are very familiar with those, and the studies have come out on how those have harmed us. Alcohol, tobacco, these are things we use quite regularly with little to no concern, who have caused us quite great harm across those three. And we still have the ability to have regulations, which includes age limits, quantity limits, how much we can have before we cause bodily harm to ourselves, and even legal limits. If we look at alcohol, you can only drink so much and operate machinery, right? Why can't we have those same regulations with drugs? We already have the stipulations put out there. And additionally, just looking at it from a bodily autonomous perspective, one of the things Americans, most specifically conservative Americans, lean heavily on is the fact that they want to be able to do whatever they think is right with their own bodies and their own property. Why is this any different than anything else in our lives? We didn't like it when seatbelts were put upon us, those regulations. Why can't we as Americans have the same ability to regulate ourselves with recreational drug use? I don't quite see this as anything different. It is a new perspective. This is not a perspective we've always had. So I understand that it takes a little bit of social adjustment. But overall, at the end of the day, new time, new ways of thinking. I think this is no different than anything else. And we can find ways to regulate it and keep ourselves safe, all Americans safe.
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right. I do want to let everyone know the polls are open. The polls are open to vote on the first subtopic, bodily freedom or government protection. Should adults have the right to legally use any drug they choose? All right, Mike,
All
same
right.
question.
Same
Two
question.
minutes.
2 minutes. Man, Sean, I can't rock with you on this one. And the reason why is because you mentioned regulation and the legal regulation of alcohol and things of that nature. People can't do that now. I mean, we have all kinds of people that get DUIs across the board because they drink way too much. As a matter of fact, when it comes to going to actual bars, bartenders and bar owners are supposed to make sure that they're paying attention to people in terms of making sure that they don't drink a lot, and they don't care because they collect all the money, and then they let people walk outside and get into their cars, and all of a sudden now they're getting a DUI or much, much worse, which is hurting people. And that right there leads to my point as to why you cannot allow people to just, go ahead and pick and choose whichever drugs they want to use. I mean, it's easy to talk about heroin and crack and cocaine and all that, but one thing I want to talk about is the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. There's a reason why the Food and Drug Administration has, banned hundreds and hundreds of drugs. It's not just because they're harmful to you, but it's because people don't know what to take and when to take them. People don't pay attention to the side effects. All of us here have paid attention to, commercials where they'll say, yeah, take this weight loss drug, but then they'll list a whole bunch of side effects. Well, a lot of those side effects also exist with drugs that have been banned by the FDA. And so, you have to ask yourself, do you really want people, just having free will in terms of taking whatever drugs they want without being educated on the types of drugs that they're taking, without being educated on the side effects, without being educated on how not only could it harm themselves, but it can harm other people when they take these drugs? So, I can't agree with that because there's a lot of dangers. The cons way outweigh the pros, and to me, there are no pros anyway. So that's my stance on it. I cannot agree with anyone just taking drugs at any time.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Sean, would you like to counter?
Of course.
Okay.
And quite frankly, Mike, I have to first thank you for making much of my argument, right? You talked about how bars actually tell people when they need to stop drinking because the bartenders have been educated on what it looks like for somebody who's so inebriated that they should not be driving themselves home for fear of harming somebody else. Why can't we say that? Why can't we take that same knowledge and apply it to heroin or crack or cocaine or Molly, right? Those drugs have physical side effects that are visible to everyone. And those same bartenders maybe will have like little not, I guess it wouldn't be bartenders, right? Because that's alcohol. But if we had drug dens that specialize in giving people a place to do those drugs and educate the people who work in those environments to say, hey, that person probably shouldn't go out and drive. Let's warn them and then give them the opportunity to get rides home, right? You also mentioned the FDA, fabulous example. Much like the FDA went and studied the effects of drugs and give people knowledge and information on the amount of drug, or not, excuse me, we're not talking about drugs, we're talking about alcohol now. The amount of alcohol they can have before it causes side effects, what those side effects are. Again, something we can very easily apply to heroin, Molly, meth. We have all of those mechanisms in place. We've already tested it with alcohol and tobacco. Why on earth? What makes meth so much different than tobacco and alcohol if we've already done the legwork and the practice for those two things that were once illegal, and much illegal? And we'll talk about the side effects of them being illegal later. Why can't we take what we've already done and apply it to the now illegal drugs? We're doing it with weed. People thought weed was a gateway drug, and now not so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sean. All right. I want to let everyone know before Mike counters, the polls are open. The polls are open. If you want to vote, go to the two-sidedtruth.com, the two-sidedtruth.com. We are streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, but you can only vote on the two-sidedtruth.com. You can also watch the debate on the two-sidedtruth.com. Michael, would you like to counter?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And Sean, actually you made my point because I'm going to answer your question. The reason why you can't have these drug dens and the reason why you can't have these types of places where you're telling people, hey, only take an ounce instead of 2 ounces is because people are going to listen to that. You know that people aren't going to listen to that. Everybody here knows doggone well that if you tell me, okay, look, you can only do 2 lines of cocaine, but after you do 2 lines of cocaine, we got to stop you. You can't do any more. Well, guess what I'm about to do when I leave? I'm about to do another 2 lines of cocaine. Now I'm up to 4 lines of cocaine. There's your problem. You're depending upon people to regulate themselves. And that's not going to happen. These are the same people who can't even do 30 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. That's why we have to have speed cameras all up and down the city of Chicago, because people aren't going to pay attention to that. You give people the opportunity to push the limit. They are not only going to push that limit, they're going to go right past that limit. And look, I understand, sometimes people want to do stuff to take the edge off. Sometimes because marijuana is legal in the state of Illinois, sometimes you want to smoke a little to take the little edge off. Sometimes you want to go to that bar to take the little edge off. But the problem is people don't know their limitations. Even when you tell them, do not drink all of this, do not smoke all of that, do not snort all of this, do not put all of that heroin in your arm in that needle, people aren't going to pay attention. You are really, really, really dependent upon people listening to you. Okay. I'm a teacher. I can tell you, my students barely listen to me when I tell them, you got to make sure you put the thesis statement at the end of the introductory paragraph. They don't listen to me. Where do they put it? At the top of the introductory paragraph. The point I'm making is you're really dependent on people to regulate themselves. Good luck with that.
Okay. Thank you so much. The polls are open. The polls are open on the two-sidedtruth.com. All right. Before we move to the next before we move to the next topic, I have a few questions. All right. This question is going to go to Sean. Sean, you got 30 seconds to answer this question.
So stressful. Right. Okay, let's go.
Okay. If addiction removes choice, is freedom really a valid argument for people who may no longer be in control of their decision? And before you answer, I told you my producer may be having some technical issues, so I'm going to put this up for you before you go.
All Wait, right. Before you start the timer, repeat the question because I want to make sure I completely understood you.
Yes. If addiction removes choice, is freedom really a valid argument for people who may no longer be in control of their decisions? 30 seconds. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go.
So I think when I am arguing, I don't see the timer moving. There it goes. When we're talking about addiction, I think that's a completely separate argument, right? I don't know how logical, again, looking from a conservative perspective, how much of our regulation should be mandated from people who have something going on with them that doesn't allow them to self-regulate. Thank you, Mike, for putting that in my space. So I don't know if we really want to be regulated or have laws made because people are unable. There are a small fraction of people who can't control themselves.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. The polls are open, you all. The polls are open. All right, Mike, question for you. 30 seconds. Where is the consistency in banning some drugs while allowing others that are equally or more harmful? So let me make sure this timer is going. 30 seconds. I'm a rewinder for you. All right, you got 30 seconds.
Got you. There is no consistency. That's why I want to ban them all. That's the consistency. I want them all shut down. I mean, because you have to have an all or nothing approach when it comes to substances, because if you don't, people are going to toe the line and people are going to be like, okay, well, I guess I can take this type of drug, but I can't take that type of drug, especially when it comes for medicinal purposes. You have to have an all or nothing approach, because if you don't, you're going to figure out a way to get around it.
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right, you all, the polls are open for just a few more, like 20, maybe one more minute for this particular round, but we are moving on to round two. Let me get to round two. Round two is our trial by fire round. Round two is our trial by fire round. Listen, face the heat, defend your position. All right. Okay. So, got a little bit of moderator information here. Now let's talk about policy and consequences. For over 50 years, the war on drugs has shaped how the United States handles drug use, trafficking, and enforcement. It has led to millions of arrests, billions in spending, and lasting impacts on communities across the country. Yet, despite all of that, drugs remain widely available and overdose rates continue to rise. At the same time, supporters of prohibition argue that drug laws still act as a necessary barrier, preventing even greater levels of use and harm. So we have to ask, did prohibition reduce the problem or did it create new ones? Has the effort to control drugs actually caused more damage than the drug themselves? Michael, you have round two. The subtopic is, has drug prohibition caused more harm to society than the drugs themselves?
Well, when it comes to drug prohibition, the problem with drug prohibition is that it's not actually enforced. All right. I mean, you mentioned the 18th Amendment and you mentioned alcohol. Here's the messed up thing about when it comes to prohibition. Okay. When you don't properly enforce laws, then people are going to do whatever they want to do. For instance, when it came to alcohol, as we all know in Chicago, a whole bunch of underground places were created where people could drink. Right. Everybody knew where these places were, but the police refused to raid them. Okay. As a matter of fact, small, side tidbit, there are a lot of these underground bars and restaurants that still exist in Chicago to this day. And you can actually do scavenger hunts to try to find these places. But anyway, my point is, if you are going to actually prohibit drugs, then you need to prohibit drugs across the board. What has to happen is, not only do you have to have strong laws against them, but when people go underground, you actually have to go underground and arrest them. You actually have to make sure that the police, are not on the take and nobody's being bribed to let things go. If you're going to do it, it has to happen all of the way. That's one of the reasons why prohibition didn't work back in the day, because people found ways around it and people looked the other way and police were bribed and judges were bribed. You have to do it all the way. So if you want prohibition to work and you want to eliminate all drugs and you want to actually have all penalties, then it has to be all the way. Because I can tell you right now, if it's not all the way and, I get my way and I say, okay, I get my way in terms of all drugs being legalized, but then we can go underground to some place and get them, and people get addicted and they do all kinds of things, as a result of being able to get these drugs, then what's the point? So we have to make sure that if we're going to enact these laws, that we enact them across the board and we go underground and get the people who are still doing drugs underground as the bottom.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. All right. The polls are open. The polls are open for this subtopic. We are streaming live on Facebook. We are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn. However, you can only cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com. You can only cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com. It is free 99 to cast your vote. That means it's free. In terms of casting your vote, if you want to vote more than once, you do have to sign in or subscribe. So we encourage you to do that. It's free. We don't spam you. We tell you an hour ahead of the debate, hey, this debate is happening. So come on ahead and subscribe to us. All right, Sean, same question. I'll repeat it for you. Has drug prohibition caused more harm to society than the drugs themselves?
I think Mike kind of said it for me, right? Having things be illegal, just looking straight from the alcohol prohibition perspective, it created all of these underground markets, including corrupting law enforcement, right? And the legal system. Just from this one thing being illegal created all this corruption from all sides. Mike said something earlier, like people can't regulate themselves, so why give them something that they can't regulate themselves? If the law and the cops can't regulate themselves and find any honor in protecting people from something that they deem as harmful or illegal, how can we continue to criminalize people? We can't continue to criminalize people. We saw from alcohol prohibition, it created so many dark markets. It created a corrupt legal system. People were getting paid off to get people off. It only stopped when alcohol became legal and we created regulations. We're not seeing bootleggers pay off judges now to get off. You know why? Because there's a whole alcohol industry. They don't have to pay off judges anymore. They don't have to pay off the FDA. They don't have to pay off CED. There's no payoff. There's no legal ramifications for having bourbon. So it's obvious to anybody who is a study of history that continuing to have drug prohibition is going to lead into the same avenues. We're going to continue to see corrupt cops. We're going to continue to see corrupt judges, and we're going to continue to see a flourishing dark market. So if from anybody's perspective, it makes all the sense in the world to regulate the drugs and make them legal to a point, right? We're not talking about letting people go out and drive and run over children. Obviously, that would be something that we would put them in jail for. But if they're in their drug dens, having their drugs and going home and having a normal life, we should probably just stop making it illegal.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Sean. The polls are open, you all. The polls are open for this round. Please make sure that you vote on the twosidedtruth.com. We're streaming live on all platforms, but you can only vote on the twosidedtruth.com. All right. Mike, would you like to counter?
Oh, for sure. Okay. And the thing is that, you know, Sean, you're right. And actually you being right is actually helping my point, because my point is we have to make sure that that drug prohibition is stronger. We actually have to make sure that people are doing their jobs, because if people don't do their jobs, like you said, stuff's going to run rampant. The fact of the matter is that until the police do their jobs, until judges do their jobs and actually, you know, lock people up and make sure that they don't get out, you know, and come back and are able to, you know, continue this vicious cycle, this is going to continue. And that's my point. My point is we have to have strong laws on the board that says, you know what? You cannot do this under any circumstances. If you do this, these are the punishments, right? Whether you're first-time offender, second-time offender, third-time offender, fourth-time offender, you know, it has to be specific in nature. And that also includes, you know, drugs that have been banned by the FDA. We have to make sure that we are protecting people from themselves, which means that we have to take a hardline stance. Because if you don't take a hardline stance, I mean, you know, we might as well just go on your side and legalize everything. So that's my point. We have to make sure that we take a hard line stance on this by saying this law is specific in nature, that law is specific in nature. You cannot do this because if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And the laws have to be strong, right? It can't be some, you know, slap on the wrist and then you go away and then you come back, because there's too many times. And I've been in court, so I've watched this stuff where people get a slap on the wrist, and then a couple of days later, they're right back to doing the same thing that got them in court in the first place. So until we have stronger laws, you're right, people are going to continue to do this, which is why I want stronger laws on the books.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. All right. Sean, would you like to counter?
Sure. And I'm not going to agree with Mike this time.
Okay, good. This is a debate. Stand your ground.
Yes. My time. Okay. So Mike said something interesting, right? That we need to have strong laws, right? I think you would be remiss to think people who are in jail for selling crack, for selling heroin are in there for 5 years. Many of them are in there for 30, 40 years. That seems pretty harsh to me, right? And yet those industries continue to thrive. So I guess my question to Mike would be, and obviously he's not going to answer it because I'm really trying to push my point, is what is a law? What is a sentence that would get people to stop selling drugs or even using drugs. We have people in jail who are in there for using drugs for 5, 10 years. They come out, they do the drugs again. So I repeat my question: what is the sentence that you put people in jail for that would A, deter people from doing it? Because the drug industry has been going on for what, 70 years, and people are still going to jail for it, no matter what the sentence length is. What's the sentence that's going to keep people from selling and doing drugs? I'll answer it for you. There is no such thing, because people are going to do much like you said earlier, right? People can't regulate themselves. Better yet, I'm going to put it like this: this is about money. And if people can make money and lots of it, there is no such sentence that's going to deter them from doing it. So again, if we can see we saw for 13 years that regulating alcohol did not work. All it did was get a whole bunch of people rich. Why can't we apply this to drugs? Makes all the sense in the world to me.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all been kind of beating that bomb. All right. I do want to let people know.
Ain't that what we're here for?
Listen, the bomb is not getting me. The bomb is not getting me.
I mean, I'm trying to keep it moving, trying to keep it moving.
I appreciate that. All right. We have a few comments from the chat. Reggie says, everyone is irresponsible. That percentage who can't handle it put our families and loved ones in danger. Mr. Ferguson says, let's follow the model of the Netherlands. Excuse me. I was going to say Neanderthals. My bad. Let's follow the model of the Netherlands. Some regulation, but a wonderful society. I saw it firsthand a few years ago. Legalize it with limitations. All right. So the polls for this subtopic will be open for just a few more minutes. All right, so I have a few questions. Let's get to it. All right, Michael, after decades of enforcement and massive spending, drugs are still widely available. What measurable success can you point to? 30 seconds.
That's the problem. It's very difficult to point to a measure success, and here's why. The laws are inconsistent. For instance, marijuana is legal statewide, but it's illegal federally, right? There's no consistency there. So if I have weed in Illinois and I decide to go buy gas in Indiana and I get pulled over by the cops in Indiana, guess who gets to get prosecuted federally? Why? There's your problem. Because there's no consistency, it's very difficult to mandate a lot of this stuff. We need consistency.
All right. Thank you so much. The polls are open for just a few more minutes, you all, for this subtopic. All right, Sean, if cartels disappear, what prevents corporations from becoming the new legal cartels? 30 seconds.
They already are the legal cartels. Like, I'm sorry, too late. They are the legal cartels. I mean, big pharma. I mean, let's look at meth, right? I know there's a lot of belief that meth is being shipped in on little boats in the Caribbean. That's quite frankly not true. Much in those plain states, Idaho, Nebraska, they're buying meth at local doctors. They're unregulated doctors. They're corrupted doctors who don't care about those people's lives, but they're not buying them from the Mexican cartel. They're buying them from the doctor down the street. So I don't have a good answer. It's already too late.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, you all, we are moving to the next round. We are on round 3. And round 3 is what? Round 3 is our under pressure arguments are tested round. All right. So we are moving forward. The next round brings us to the human side of the issue, addiction. Medical experts often describe addiction as a disease, something that affects the brain and behavior in ways that are difficult to control. But the legal system has historically treated drug use as a crime, often resulting in incarceration rather than treatment. Some countries have shifted towards a health-based approach, focusing on rehabilitation instead of punishment. Others maintain the legal consequences are still necessary to maintain order and accountability. So here's the question. we have to wrestle with. Is addiction something we punish or something we treat? Should drug addiction be handled by healthcare systems instead of the criminal justice system? All right, Sean, we back to you. Should subtopic 3, round 3. Should drug addiction be handled by healthcare systems instead of the criminal justice system? And before you go, I just want to let people know the polls are closing for the previous subtopic and we are opening for this subtopic. Don't forget to cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com, the twosidedtruth.com. 2 minutes, Sean.
Okay. So I have more of a question for anybody listening to this argument, right? To me, it depends on what your goals are in a society. If we understand that jails or prisons don't have any treatment systems, they don't have any doctors there to help people get off of whatever drug, support them, offer them counseling, give them mechanisms to deal with whatever the reasons are that they even started to join in the first place, then and we know that, but we want to rehabilitate them. Does jail make sense to put them in? Or if your goal is to punish them because morally they failed, they failed as a member of society, they should have been more strong-willed, should have pulled themselves by the bootstraps and not let whatever trauma caused them to start doing the drugs in the first place. If that's your goal, then sure, they should probably go to jail. I'd like to think as Americans, we understand that people do drugs not because they're bored or they have little to do. Most people start doing drugs, at least at a level that causes addiction, for one of two reasons. Either one, they have the kind of brain that is addictive, right? So once they did something, they automatically were addicted to it. And we've all tried stuff, and we don't necessarily, not all of us, but many of us have tried things and haven't come out addicted. Or two, they're trying to survive some traumatic instance that happened to them when they were kids or young adults. And they're hiding behind the drugs to satiate themselves from whatever their brain is telling them about the traumatic instance. And I'd like to think, knowing that as an American, it would be more important to us to provide those people help than punish them because from our perspective, they morally failed. So I ask the people listening, what's more important to you? Make them feel bad for failing morally or actually helping them so they can become productive parts of society?
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right, Mike, it is your turn to answer the same question. But before you do, I want to let everyone know that the polls are open for this topic. The polls are open. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, but you can only cast your vote on the twosidedtruth.com. The twosidedtruth.com. It is free to cast your vote. You can only vote once if you're not signed in or subscribed, but you can vote multiple in all of the rounds if you sign in or subscribe. And to subscribe, it is free 99. So please subscribe so you can at least get information when we have in terms of our upcoming debates on our shows. All right, Michael, I'll repeat the question. Should drug addiction be handled by healthcare systems instead of the criminal justice system? You got 2 minutes.
All right, I'm gonna sound real harsh on this one. I know I'm about to lose some big time points here, but here's why it cannot be handled by the healthcare systems. If people want to get better, they have to want to get better, if that makes any sense. If you're addicted to any type of drug, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be, the drugs that have been romanticized, right? Such as, cocaine and heroin. Again, it could be something that was banned by the FDA. You have to want to get better. And when you go into the hospital or you go into a facility where people are trying to help you and you are resisting the help, then there really is no other alternative but to place you in jail. The criminal justice system has to take it from there. Why? Because the criminal justice system is not going to be nice to you. The criminal justice system doesn't care about your feelings. The criminal justice system doesn't care that you have an addiction. The criminal justice system, they're going to put you in jail. They're going to put you in a small room that's about the size of a bathroom, and they're not going to let you have any drugs. And what's going to happen is your body's going to have to, get rid of it cold turkey. And again, I know that sounds harsh. I know that sounds vicious. I know a lot of people out there are looking at me like, "Oh, Mike, how could you say such a thing? That is so cruel and so mean." The fact of the matter is that if people refuse to get help when you offer them the help, then what alternative do you have? Because if they're addicted to something and they don't want any help, and then they go outside and then they end up injuring someone because of their addiction, then what? What are you going to say to the families of their loved ones who got killed because somebody was addicted to drugs and ended up hurting that person and killing that person? So, yeah, healthcare systems, no, got to put them in jail.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Sean, would you like to counter?
Of course.
Okay. 2 minutes to counter.
Now, I'm a little surprised by Mike and his argument because he mentioned something about going to prison and basically being forced to dry it out. I think anybody who's ever watched Oz or watched MSNBC understands that drugs flow in and out of all prisons all day long. Nobody who is addicted to a substance has no availability to it. They have continuous availability to it. They can keep their heroin addiction going because there's somebody in there to sell it, much less the correction officers, another legal entity that has been corrupted, right? So does it make sense to continue to put these people? And I actually will agree with Mike, right? People can't get help unless they want to. There's also a thing that sometimes they need to be put in a position and surrounded with people who want to help them for them to see they even need the help. They're in a drug haze. I'm not really sure. And I've never been addicted to drugs, so I'm going to take a leap here. I don't know how obvious it's going to be somebody who's in the throes of drug addiction to realize that they need help. Some people do. A lot don't. And sometimes they need to be placed in a facility and dried out and have psychologists to talk to them about not only the addiction, but the source of the addiction. Why do you even have addiction? What happened that got you here? And that they can talk through it again if they want to, right? We've seen people overcome their addiction, multiple overcoming their addictions. Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., went to jail, went to several rehabilitation centers. He's done it all. But to Mike's point, he decided one day to get help. I don't think going to jail was the reason that he decided to get help. I do think he decided one day and went to a treatment facility that gave him the tools he needed to stay sober for the last 30 years. We should give all Americans that same opportunity.
Thank you so much. The polls are open, you all. The polls are open for this subtopic at the twosidedtruth.com. You can only vote on the twosidedtruth.com. Mike, would you like to counter?
Oh, yes. And Sean, that was a low blow because you mentioned one of my favorite shows, Oz, and I love Oz to death. So that's a slow blow. But yes, in Oz, and also another show I like, 60 Days In on A&E, where they talked about how, drugs are coming in to the facilities and there's ways that it was coming in. But see, that actually goes back to my earlier point in terms of people being strong. You have to make sure that drugs aren't entering the facility. How do you make sure that drugs aren't entering the facility? By doing proper checks, making sure that COs are properly checking people that could bring drugs into the facility, such as, inmates. You have to make sure that you do that, because you're right. I mean, if this isn't happening and drugs are continually getting into the criminal justice system, they're getting into jails across the board, then yes. I mean, people are going to continue to stay addicted. People are going to continue to do drugs, and that's a horrible thing, right? With that said, we have to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect people. And that's why I'm so hard on the criminal justice system, by saying you guys have got to make sure that every law is tight. And also, when it comes to your facilities, that your systems are tight, because if they're not, these things will continue, right? So we have to make sure that this stuff is happening. And this is not a knock against the healthcare system. This is not a knock against doctors and nurses and things like that. But my point stands. You can go into a facility listen to them, listen to a psychologist, and it sounds like Charlie Brown's mom, wah 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 wah. And then when you get out, you get back to doing the same thing that you were doing previously. So we have to ask ourselves: is healthcare system really working to help people stay off drugs as the bond goes up?
All right, Mike, thank you so much. All right,
Mm-hmm.
the polls are still open, you all, for this subtopic. Um, Reggie says, thing is, realistically, there's not a drug you can get on the street that can't be bought in prison as well. Treatment is needed. Sean, I got a question for you. 30 seconds for you to answer. If addiction is treated only as a health issue, how should society handle crimes committed under the influence? 30
I
seconds.
I think it depends on the crime. I don't think there should be a blanket answer for this, right? I think if you're doing something that's a misdemeanor, like blowing a red light because you are high, I think your only option should be go into treatment, right? But if you're high on your mind off of meth and you go slaughter a family, right? I think you should have more of a criminal, you should have criminal acts, but they should probably have prisons with treatment facilities within them so they can not only make sure that they're punished properly, but they also have the support so when they come out that they are viable citizens in the society.
Okay, thank you. Polls are open, you all, for this subtopic. Polls are still open for this subtopic. All right, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
If prison is a solution, why do relapse rates remain high after incarceration? 30 seconds.
Because once they get out, unfortunately, we don't have systems in place when prisoners get out to actually help them in terms of finding employment, finding, getting educated, getting degrees, things of that nature. I've always said that once somebody is released from prison, you have to give them the tools to be successful. And I'll be honest with this one, a lot of times jails don't do that. So until that actually happens, relapse is probably what.
All right, thank you so much. All right, we are moving on to round four. We're moving on to round four. And round four, I believe, is the Inferno. Listen, the final blaze, rise or get burned. Now we get to the big picture. If all drugs were legalized, what kind of society would that create? Supporters argue that legalization could reduce crime, eliminate black markets, and allow for safer regulated use. Opponents warn that it could increase addiction, overwhelm healthcare systems, and normalize dangerous behavior. We're already seeing pieces of this debate play out in real time. Marijuana has been legalized in many states, creating regulated markets. At the same time, the country is facing record overdose deaths tied to substances like fentanyl. So the final question is this: does legalization reduce harm or does it expand it? Would legalizing all drugs make society safer or dangerous? I'm moving to Michael. This is your question.
All right.
Would legalizing all drugs make society safer or more dangerous? All right, you all, you have to vote. This is our second to this is the second round to the last round, but this is the fourth round, and the polls will be open in a few seconds for this next round. You were streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, social, LinkedIn, all of the above, but you can only cast your vote on the two-sidedtruth.com, the two-sidedtruth.com. All right. Would legalizing all drugs make society safer or more dangerous? Mike, you have 2 minutes.
Of course, it would make society way more dangerous. I want people to imagine the French Quarter in New Orleans. Now, I'm someone who enjoys, a good old fashioned, right? Or a good Sazerac. But imagine this entire country being the French Quarter. Imagine this entire country being, I forget which season of The Wire it was, where the captain said, okay, all of you can sell drugs over here. Right. And everybody went and sold drugs over there. And that section of Baltimore was nothing but a drug haven where you had drug addicts, pimps, prostitutes, anything went in that neighborhood. So I want you to take those two entities, right? And I want you to imagine the entire country being like that. Drugs just completely legalized everywhere. You walk down the street, you can get you some weed. You walk over here, get you some crack. Walk over here, get you some cocaine. Walk over here, get you some heroin. Walk over here, get any type of pain medication that you want because your head hurt. But the problem is that pain medication is actually for your foot instead of your head because you weren't smart enough to make sure that you read up on the actual drug that you were taking. That's how this thing can be way more dangerous. I mean, yes, you can attempt to have regulations and yes, you can attempt to have certain types of laws where, you try to protect people. But at the end of the day, if you make drugs legal and you make it legal across the board, of course, society is going to be more dangerous. I can already have an old fashioned right now. So now imagine me being able to have an old fashioned in one hand and a needle with all kinds of heroin in the other hand. Put all that together in me, and all of a sudden I get behind the wheel of a car, and there goes little Johnny because I'm running him over. Do you really want that to happen?
All right, Mike. Thank you so much for that. All right. The polls are open, you all, for this topic. The polls are open. Sean, would legalizing all drugs make society safer or more dangerous? 2 minutes.
To me, it's really not a question about it being safer or more dangerous, right? To me, the more important question is, do we want to give people the opportunity to, one, be educated on the drug they're taking, and two, be provided the help if they get to a point where they need the help, right? I like Mike's example, right? In his world, all the drugs illegal, but yet not regulated. The FDA has not provided regulations. People don't have certain percentages. We haven't gotten, the dispensaries for all the drugs, right? Where people, much like weed right now, right? There are people who can completely tell you what strand it is, what it does, what that amount does, how it will help you sleep, how it may not help you sleep, how it will help you party. Now imagine a world that Mike painted, but people understand exactly what's in the crack, what that particular strand of crack, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's strands of crack, right? That particular strand of crack, how it will affect you. You go into doing it already knowing what that particular percentage is going to do, how it's going to impact you, so you can better prepare for where you need to be doing that particular drug. It's like any other drug. It's like Percocets. It's like Vicodin. We have tons of drugs out here with really nasty side effects, but people are educated on what they will do. So I guess my question would be, would you prefer to be in a world where drugs are unregulated and people are dying in the streets? Because that's the world we live in now, right? Or would you prefer a world where people have the option of understanding what's exactly in it, taking it, and having a better shot of living through it, and perhaps doing less crime? Because these drugs we have right now, nobody knows what the hell is in it. We have no idea why it's making them do that. So I guess it depends on what world you want.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sean. The polls are open, you all. The polls are open for this subtopic. Mike, would you like to counter?
Yes, I would. And I think I finally got it. I do. I think I finally got it. Our disconnection is with people. I think I figured it out. You have confidence in people that they are going to be able to regulate themselves when it comes to this stuff. I do not have a lot of confidence in people that they're going to be able to regulate. I do not have confidence that people are going to, like you said, with marijuana, they can tell you the strand, they can tell you the effect. And you're absolutely right on that. Because a lot of my friends, they break it down all the time while they're smoking. The problem is you also have a different segment of society that isn't even interested in understanding what that is. They're like, just give me the drug. I just won't get high. Okay. Whether it's, again, the romanticized drugs that I've had fun with, during this debate, or, the FDA type drugs that have been banned. You're assuming that people, well, maybe assuming is not the right word. You have a belief, that's probably a better word, in people that they're actually going to educate themselves and or listen to those who know what they're talking about in terms of how much should you take, how much you should use, how often should you use it, how many days a week, things of that nature, what you should not mix it with. You would think that people would listen, but they won't. I mean, going back to the alcohol example, I've been in places where bartenders have said, you don't want to mix these two spirits, right? And then what does the drunk dude at the bar do? He mixes those two spirits, right? So I think that's where the disconnect is between me and you. You believe in people. I do not believe in people at all in terms of them actually taking, responsibility for their actions. And I can see a lot of people saying, you know what? I'm not going to do what Shauna told me to do. She said only do one line of coke. I'm doing 4.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. The polls are open for this topic. The polls are open. All right, Sean, would you like to counter?
I feel like I have to, right? I have to.
Right.
So here's the thing, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have faith in people. I have faith in history. History will always tell you how things will go. Like, you can look back at wars and dissect. People look back at wars to figure out how to fight current wars. History will tell you everything you need to know. The history of prohibition will tell you everything you need to know. Speaking of alcohol, thank you for bringing it up. Yes, you're always going to have people who are going to misuse things. People misuse crayons. I don't think people want to take away crayons because some idiot is not going to use it the way it's supposed to. Yeah. But you look at the people who understand bourbon, who could tell you what the barrel is. And these are not people who work in the dispensaries. These are the bougie people who drink at the bars. They can tell you the oak. They can tell you how old the oak is. They can tell you what the bottle is made of. They can tell you what the cork is made of, because this all matters to them in their drinking experience. Now, understanding how people work and the history of how we got here, I can't help but understand, and I'm not saying this is going to happen right away, right? Mm-hmm. We have had a very intense drug environment for a really long time. And I would imagine if I studied what happened right after Prohibition, it wasn't sunshines and rainbows right out of Prohibition, right? You're going to have a few decades of people trying to acclimate to these new regulations, these new understandings. And you are going to have people who are still going to be abusing them to the level they're abusing them now. But after some time and some education, people will evolve, positions will evolve. It happens with everything. It happens with language. It will happen with drug use too. People will evolve and grow and change, and things will look different eventually. Not the right way, but eventually.
All right. Thank you so much for that. All right, you all, the polls are still open for this subtopic. We're approaching our last and final round, debate or die. The polls are still open. All right, I got a few questions. Mm-hmm. So, Sean, what safeguards would you put in place for extremely dangerous drugs like fentanyl if they were legalized? Start the clock back up. Thank you so much. 30 seconds.
So, okay. So I have a really hard time answering this question, right? Because I'm not a drug expert, right? I'm not a judge. I'm not a cop. I'm not a person who creates laws. So I can't say what the best way to do it is, right? But I think if we studied it and we understood it, it would be clear to us what those laws should look like. But I know it's a debate, but I want to be honest. Like, I can't come up with a process if I don't understand it to a cursory level.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. All right. The polls are still open for this subtopic. Mike, if people are already overdosing at record levels under prohibition, how does keeping drugs illegal fix that?
Well, I think when it comes to keeping drugs illegal, it goes back to what I've been saying consistently, that you have to have more stringent laws and you have to be specific with your laws. It's like I said with the marijuana thing, there's some drugs that are legal statewide but illegal federally. And then there's some drugs that are legal in one state but not in another. I mean, until we get some level of consistency across the board, then you're going to continue to have these issues, Lisa.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we are at our last and final round, the debate or die round, right? Where's my debate or die round?
Graphic.
Graphic. Thank you so much. No scripts, just truth. Thank you to my show producer, you all. I got to give her a hand. Let's give her a hand because she has sacrificed so much she's traveling out of town for some personal reasons, and she's traveled. She's given so much to assist me this evening. I so appreciate her. So this is our last round. This is our sparring round, which is timed 5 minutes. And so Sean and Mike will have a chance to interact respectfully and ask each other questions and counter. So you have a total of 5 minutes collectively sharing it. So let's not hog the 5 minutes where one person is doing all the talking. So this is the last round. So if you haven't voted, you'll have a chance to do so. All right, you all, debate or die. Who's going to kick it off?
Go ahead, Sean. You want to kick
Come
it off?
on, ladies first. You're going to say ladies first, Mike.
That's ladies first. Yes. Ladies first. I agree with that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mike, I got some questions for you. I've been listening to you. I've been jotting down some things. But my first question is, from a conservative perspective, is the goal for drug addicts to rehab them or punish them?
I mean, for me, I would love for them to be rehabbed. I mean, that's my thing. I really do. And I really, I know it may not sound like that after everything I've been saying, but I really want them to rehab. But the problem is, once you give some, not all, some people the opportunity to rehab themselves, they screw up again. And so at some point, we got to hold them accountable. So I would rather rehab them instead of just throwing them in jail the first time. That's what I would rather do.
So, and I appreciate the accountability perspective. Then I'll let you hop in and you can ask me some questions, right? But why don't we see going to a treatment facility as being accountable? Why is jail the only way to be accountable for drug offenses?
Because unfortunately, there are people who will go to a treatment facility and they won't take it seriously. There are people who will go to a treatment facility and not actually get the help that they're supposed to get from the people who are there, who are trained professionals, who are there to help them. There's your problem. Being a teacher, I've seen so many kids and so many young adults not take this stuff seriously, and then they end up in jail for real. And then once they end up in jail for real, they regret what they did in terms of not being given the opportunity by the court sometimes to actually, clean up their act. So, for me, there's just too many people that don't take it seriously. If more people took it seriously, honestly, I'd be on your side. But there are too many people that just don't. And sometimes, people got to learn things the hard way. And sometimes jail is just that hard way.
Okay. Am I going to be spouting off? You got some questions for me. Come on, conservative man.
Well, actually, honestly, I'm not a conservative. I'm an independent. I don't like Democrats.
I'm sorry. Let me not insult you being an independent.
Yeah, I don't like Democrats or Republicans. I put that out there all the time. But I guess my one question to you, Sean, would be, if we are not going to hold people accountable in terms of prison, and if rehab facilities aren't working, what would be your recommendation for people then?
That's a very interesting question, right? I guess I understand that, and I'm going to use your school example, right? Yes, there are plenty of children who don't take school seriously. Do we throw them out of school because they don't take it seriously? No. We get in their face and say, you have to take this seriously. You have to get through this. This is important to you. So I don't think it should be a one and done for treatment. I talked about Robert Downey earlier. He went in treatments like 20 times. Charlie Sheen, 15 times. They still got an opportunity to try to make their lives better. And I think everybody should get continuous opportunities to make their lives better. We've all got multiple opportunities to fuck up. I don't know if we can curse, but if we can, hopefully so. We've all gotten those multiple opportunities to mess up. none of us have gotten it the first time. And I don't understand why we treat drug offenders or criminals in general, right? Why they have to get it right the first time in order to prove that they mean it. There are a lot of circumstances about why people do drugs, why people commit crime. And sometimes it is a re-education. Some people, and I will say this as a progressive, some people do just need to be locked away. And those are very small percentages of people who just need to be locked away and kept away from people forever, right? But I think most people require multiple chances to do anything, to learn how to drive a car, to get their career right, to get their education right. I'll use myself as an example. I had to go to college 3 times before I got a degree. So I don't think we should only give people one opportunity to do well. Maybe they need a few, and that's okay. They should get as many as they need until they get it right.
I can agree with that because I had to take remedial math in college. So, I can't add to save my life, but I was able to graduate. So I
not remedial math.
Remedial math. I sure did. I did really quickly. So I got to put this out there. I took Math 95, which was 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4. Test next week. Okay.
You are a very smart man. I don't believe you.
No, yeah,
we can talk about that later.
I teach English. I teach English for a reason because I can't add.
You all, I have to say, I really enjoyed this debate. This was really good, full of knowledge from both angles. Sean, thank you so much for being on. Mike, thank you so much for being on. I know this was your second time being on, and you're going to be on more times than that. Now, Sean, I want you to come back for sure. I know you signed up. So I want to say that Sean is filling in for someone at the last minute. So I so appreciate you for filling in and coming on. It's like you were filling in. You were prepared. So I appreciate
it. I didn't know who I was going against. I didn't know. So I was like, I'm coming in. Y'all should see the notes I have. I don't prepare ever this much for my own podcast. I was ready.
Thank you so much for that. So as you all know, on the two-sidedtruth.com debate, there is always a winner. And though I appreciate everyone, both of you all, for being on, we do have a winner, and I have to declare Mike Crenshaw is the winner of this debate.
I finally won.
Guess, our minds in this society still says no to legalizing all drugs.
That's right.
Not surprising.
Mike,
I finally won something. There we go.
You only been on here twice. You lost once and you won one. You are 50% average
right
now.
You 1 for 1, Mike. You're 1 for 1.
1 for 1 now. There we go.
You're going to be gifted with a gift certificate to one of our sponsors at the flip side with Lisa Tracy or Shahai Apparel. Thank you so much for you all, to our debaters. If you believe you can hold your own during a debate and you love presenting facts and you can civilly debate with passion, sign up to be a debater. Go to the two-sidedtruth.com, scroll down a little and click the Become a Debater button. If you'd like to suggest a topic, go to the two-sidedtruth.com, scroll down right under or right, depending on if you're on your phone or if you're on a computer. They may be side by side, but they may be after this button might be under the Become a Debater button. Suggest a topic that you'd like to see us discuss. We want to discuss every topic imaginable. No topic is too crazy or too small. Thank you. I want to say thank you all for tuning into this debate. Join us for our next debate next week, where our topic of conversation is R. Kelly and P. Diddy were both convicted. Who else should have been charged? Join us for our two debaters with opposing views. Demetrius Reddy, and of course, Mike Crenshaw that you saw this evening. He's going to be back with us next week as well. If you want to keep this conversation like this going, check out our newsletter, The Flip Side with Lisa Tracy, where we bring you two perspectives to both sides of the story. Check us out at theflipsidewithlisatracy.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well, Facebook, and of course, subscribe on the Two-Sided Truth so that you can get text as well as emails what the next topic is. I promise we do not spam We just let you know what's the next upcoming topic about an hour before the debate. Thank you all so much for tuning in and have a wonderful evening.